Welcome to the Databricks Skill Builder series. We're glad.
Hey everyone, Arthur Dooner here, Specialist Architect at Databricks. And today what I'm going to do is I'm going to intro the concept of how you can use our foundational technology, Genie, which is a tool to allow you to converse in natural language with your structured data, with your other AI systems, or as part of an application that you might build. So today, maybe first we start out with a quick review of what is Genie. I want to make sure everyone's on the same page of where Genie is, where it's coming from. I want to make sure as you think about this, you understand some of the use cases, right? So this is really quick. We're going to go over, make sure everyone's on the same page with what Genie is, right? So the idea is because we at Databricks are trying to democratize AI for everyone, right? Traditional BI, doesn't necessarily solve all of our worldly problems, especially as we integrate LLMs with it, right? We end up with this, I'd say, like, problem of scale and infrastructure because there isn't necessarily all of the context about your SQL data that you might want to ask questions about to get really meaningful insights, right? So we designed Genie to always be learning from the data and how your teams are using it, have governance over those data, and be extremely secure for business users. So as your data evolves, as your governance policies get more robust, as you're enabling more folks to approach AI and using these insights, we want to make sure Genie is the best in class place to do that. So what is Genie? It's all available on AWS, Azure, and GCP. It's all in Unity Catalog, which is our governance layer. We have plenty of other skill builders that talk about that UC infrastructure. We have our SQL warehouses, which run either serverless or pro, which run the actual underlying queries Genie will make, because Genie will take your English question, convert it to a SQL query, run that SQL on one of these clusters, and return those results. So it's important to understand this is a governed thing. It's running on compute that you have available in Databricks, and it uses up the Databricks consumption units, DBUs, which are the billing units, but it's only a function of how much Databricks SQL and such you are using. So as you go to use Genie, right, you might add in specific instructions. And the whole point of a Genie room is, or Genie Spaces, we call it these days, we used to call it Genie rooms, is that it is a certain space. It is a certain context in which you talk to your data. So this understanding, I think a lot of people kind of race through when they're thinking about Genie, what a Genie space is compared to the concept of Genie overall. Genie space is meant to be a specific domain where you're speaking with a certain type or set of questions that you might want to answer with Genie. What does that mean, Arthur? That means that if I've got all of my sales data that I'm looking at retroactively, I'm going to ask it to format the answers. I'm going to ask it to show visualizations. I'm going to ask it to even maybe approach answering questions in more specific ways or in different ways than I would a different Genie room that used very similar data that was considering maybe forecasts. Maybe it's using that same original sales data to help model a potential forecast. However, the difference is it is not the room, the context is different. So I want to make that distinction very clear. You can have a lot of Genie rooms or Genie spaces. See, I keep doing it. Where the instructions that you provide to Genie might be slightly different and around slightly different data domains. Hey, I've got this additional table that I'm joining to. Hey, I've got these additional instructions because we're looking at a forecast versus a look back, right? The idea is that it learns over time from your questions. It increases context and you use it in a very domain specific way. So Genie spaces are logical components of a Genie architecture. So as we're configuring Genie, now this is all stuff completely unrelated to the API. I just wanted to make sure we're very much on the same page. Is we want to make sure we're focused on that topic, as I just said. We want to layer in instructions as we experience it, maybe not getting the exact right result. And we need to validate accuracy. So before you plug this in, this Genie space into your application, you want to make sure it's a trustable asset. So making sure the results are consistent, the results are high quality, and then you can keep coming back to improve instructions, improve data documentation, add example queries. That all improves the Genie system performance. So again, can't emphasize this enough. You want to have a focused set of tables that are solving a specific business problem in one Genie space or room. So you could even create views to remove some of the excess, if you got like a super wide table, is it important for it to be able to make visualizations on all of those other columns? Not necessarily, right? Or do you need those insights in that context? Right? Not necessarily. So the biggest problem I see folks as they approach building systems like AI systems using Genie is that they will run right into how can I make one Genie room or a couple Genie rooms define the entirety of the business problems I need to solve? That's not how this works. We need to think about how can I solve a few key business problems with a couple Genie rooms and then expand to more rooms as I'm trying to solve new data domains, new data problems, answer different questions that my business users have. So, as I alluded to, as you saw the GIF of a minute ago, these instructions are a function of the guidance, the directionality that you give per room, including your business terms, including the phrases that your business users might use. And then as people experience these instructions, like, hey, I didn't really get the answers that I was looking for, that sort of thing, these are iterable instructions, right? You can keep improving them. And I encourage teams to use these technologies called benchmarks to keep looking at known references that you might have and see how your Genie room works against those known good questions with a known good answer. How well does it stack up? So you can see even with our SQL queries, this might be a common query. We can even ask it to save that query as a specific instruction. So when we think about someone using this, trying to make it answer new questions that the BI tools didn't get. We want to get tabular results. We want to have people be able to give feedback to teach and improve Genie. So we can monitor all the questions that people are asking. And that becomes part of like a question corpus that we can use for future testing. We don't have to stick with the 5 or 10 or 30 or whatever sample questions you started with. You can continue to look back at the questions that you've already had to improve system performance. And again, this is foundational to using this in an API capacity. If you don't know, hey, my Genie system isn't working well in the API, it's important that you understand, well, it's probably because a setting or configuration in the Genie room elsewhere, maybe you need a few different Genie rooms. That ends up being very important. So, how it learns over time, it asks follow-ups, and people add their semantic knowledge and their statements to the system such that it can continue to respond with business-specific terminology. So let's hop on over to Genie and let's start to ask it some questions, right? So as we use Genie, right, I've actually got this set of yeah, like parse filings, right? So these are all just like SEC filings I have from that have parsed out like 10Ks and 10Qs. And you say I've got no instructions yet, but I've got these data, and you can see all these like metadata I have about this, like what are the most positive sections, what are the most negative sections, right? So I could ask, like, this is a very simple Genie room, but I could ask a question like, what is the most negative, or the top five most negative questions in my filings, or most negative sections. Questions are on the mind because we're all asking questions. So as that runs, I'll give it a second. Um, I'm going to come and talk to you about like the actual Genie documentation that exists out here. So if we hop on over to Genie Spaces Databricks, and I'm intentionally going to public docs so you can follow along and explore this with me. So the idea being that these Genie spaces have a related API. So you can see, apologies for the bright screen, the Genie API, which is in public preview, which means it's enabled on all of your workspaces. You can see the underlying APIs like get the Genie space, create conversation message, create a message in a conversation from a space. Now remember, space is the data domain, the problem we are trying to solve with a certain data. I might be trying to ask in this specific Genie room, right? Where is it? This specific Genie room, we can just call it like, hey, this is the Genie room to tell me about sentiment for my SEC filing sections, right? Like, what are the most negative sections? You can see it didn't seem to get this one right. It found all of the filings, and this is a really good example, like which sections. Okay, order by cast negative count. So I have some like data integrity problems here where it's like, oh, this isn't an integer, this string is an integer, or vice versa, right? So it's cleaning that up and then giving it a rank and then ordering the most negative sections, which is really cool. So made an approach, right? It only includes the five most negative sections per um per filing. So it's including like a selected filing, which is very cool. So I appreciate how far this got without any configuration. That's not the point of today, fine-tuning a Genie space. That might be something that we do in the future, but the approach today is about using the Genie API. So you could go and build a Genie system that runs and calls all of these foundational pieces. And you could have a system that, hey, I want to get this conversation message that I sent over. I want to attach this, I want to run the SQL that Genie sent over. I want to get the attached results that Genie successfully saved, that sort of thing. You could do that. But let's improve the abstractions, right? Let's go to actually, oh, I can actually use Genie Spaces. There's this thing called the Databricks SDK, if you don't already know. So this getting started page sort of shows you like, hey, here's this Databricks SDK you can import. This is the Python example. So there is a per workspace, you can reference the Genie SDK itself, right? And that Genie SDK is a layer more abstracted around the API. Whereas you have to hold the state of the content. So if you have like a certain section that you're returning, you would have to manage that state with the API. You're like, okay, get the next section of data, the next section if it's a big query that we return results from, right? What we instead need to say is, let us use this so we don't have to handle all of that internal state about these messages, about the functions, about the returns, right? Let's just return these results. So I've seen a few different AI systems that people have made that are all about, hey, I'm going to call Genie in these specific ways through the SDK because the SDK is a lot easier to authenticate and set up. Like, why over-engineer it if we don't need to? And you can see create message and wait, execute message attach query, execute message query. So again, the difference is with an attachment, right? if the API needs to rerun the attachment and needs to be re-executed versus like execute the SQL query or just download the results. So the results in Genie Spaces will eventually expire because they don't want to show you data that is not representative of what is currently in the table. So intentionally, it will force you to re-download and rerun a query, hence why you saw this one. But these are some, again, abstractions where it's give me the download, get the full query result. Right now, this is going to call it many times under the hood, right? Rather than necessarily, how do I say, calling it all on its own. It's going to try it many times under the hood, that request. You can see like the simpler ones like get message, get the message attachment. Regardless, I want you to think about these being like the fundamental abstractions to build a solution in Genie. However, I don't necessarily want you to use this, because I think of this as layer upon layer upon layer of abstraction. Why are we here? We're here to build in a lot of the teams I work with, AI systems that can consume Genie as like a tool or another agent. Okay? So what I often do is I go to this thing called the Databricks AI Bridge. So this is a library that Databricks maintains. It's available on PyPy. Um, And what's great about the AI bridge is it's got integrations for like people who use the OpenAI SDK to like plug into like our vector search and stuff, which is great, but not again not the point of today's video. We've got the Databricks lane chain integration, which you're like, Arthur, how does the lane chain integration help? The idea is that it has a key feature of using a Genie space as an agent. So very easily, someone can come along and import this Genie agent as part of a lane chain or a lane graph system that you build. So what I've seen folks do is I've seen a few different things, right? I see, and let's talk about different places that functions are stored and functions are kept in memory. So we have today, April 2025, we have three places that we see functions get consumed, right? We have Unity catalog functions, which I'll go over in a second if that's not already clear, but it's the logical, like runnable functions in Unity catalog, Python or SQL. We have um, any custom Python functions. What do I mean by that? They are bundled in your MLflow deployment. Apologies for the messy. There you go. And finally, right, we can think about this third group where it's like, hey, maybe I need to call it to like external tools. You could think of something like an external MCP server, right? These connections are three different ways that you could expose Genie to your AI agent or application, or any app that just needs to call some English formats of structured queries, right? Could even have like a Teams app that calls out to this, but that would fall into like the external tools component, right? So let's think about this. You could, with UC functions currently today, use a Python code to bundle Genie as a tool, as a, or we'll call it function to keep consistent, function in UC. So obviously you've got all your SQL tools as well. The catch is that only pure Python dependencies are supported today, which means that if you wanted to just import that cozy, convenient package that we have, right, this one with, where is it? The Databricks AI bridge, that would be unsupported because it would be an external dependency. So you can make Genie work, you would just have to use it through like the requests library, right? Again, not the most elegant solution, but it has some really nice governance components, right? You can very finely control who has access to these functions. And we'll go over those functions in a second. Then we can think about like any custom Python functions bundled in your MLflow deployment. Well, anytime I deploy an agent in Databricks, the default is it's going to bundle it in LangChain or LangGraph. It's going to make you some example code that works in LangChain or LangGraph. This is all pure Python. It's not to say you couldn't use another programming language, but that's the default. And then the pros here are lot of customization and rapid iteration because in Databricks environment, and the cons are that it doesn't have as robust governance, right? Because anyone who has access to that application would be able to see, oh, well, I can see who has access to these different pieces. If I'm granted access to this system, if I'm granted access to this model serving endpoint, then I'm have access to all these functions. Then you can think about external tools or something that you bundle into like an MCP server. This is not me saying you couldn't bundle up an MCP server in a Databricks app. I've seen that done, right? But a lot of organizations are moving towards having, and then, it's all very early days, moving towards having a model context protocol, standardized like communication layer between these, right, different tools or other agents, right? So we can see, hey, pros, lots of flexibility. Obviously, governance becomes a nightmare. Maybe that's some of the cons. And whether or not it becomes the industry standard, that remains to be seen, but it's an emerging industry standard at this point. Um, and there's a lot of deployment difficulties because you've got all these different dependencies that you kind of have to all deploy together, and you have to makes evaluation a lot harder, right? So you can think of this as like external agents that you could bundle a Genie object in as like even through an MCP server if you so choose. But then the governance becomes harder. The Unity catalog functions are really convenient and finely governable, but it's only supported in pure Python. So my recommendation and what I'm going to highlight for today is the agent in Databricks with LangChain or LangGraph example, right? So what does this look like? We're going to hop on over so we've got this new Genie space. Can I name it? Maybe I can't. Oh, I promised I'd show you benchmarks. So these are all the different evaluations, like the questions that we would want. Like what's the question, what's the SQL that it should generate, and what's the result. That all becomes part of a benchmark. You run those together. You can compare results one version or over another. So ideally, you can see like, hey, with this latest instructions, I saw that my answers were generally more accurate as a reference, right? And you can see the overall evaluation on this page. But if we go to the space, I think I have to go back up to the top level. Yep, there's the space. Is my window hiding the three dots? I don't think so. Forget how to rename spaces. Isn't that just my luck? Oh, there it is. So I'm going to start with Arthur Genie Space just to make it easy. So then I'm going to go and I'm going to play around with a model. Oh, I gotta hit save. My window is hiding some of these buttons on me, of course. Okay, I'm gonna hit save. Apologies for the ultra wide there for a second. That should be better on everyone. Now we can go to the playground. We can go to like a Claude 3.7. I generally like to use Claude for not just for demos, but for like prototypes, because it's such a powerful model. I want to prove my concept, and I want to show the reasoning capabilities um, of it, reasoning through a bunch of different tools. So I'm going to start with Claude as like the most advanced possible model that's easily accessible to me, and I encourage you all to use the most powerful model that's easily accessible to you, which it may be Claude, it may be OpenAI, it may be Llama, depending on whatever permissions and policies your organization has. Then you'd be like, hey, I can add all these tools. I'm actually going to show you the tools together. I have this colleague of mine who's got a Genie query with a different set of Genie rooms. So he's got all these tools in his governance layer, right? And I'll show you some of those tools in a second. And we'll just export, and you can click export even if you don't have these tools. But what's important to see here is that it automatically builds this tool calling agent. So all of these pieces that, immediately seem very difficult, like how do I put this like lane graph agent together? That's intimidating, right? Well, suddenly it's not, right? Suddenly we can just say, oh, let's go to this tool calling agent, and suddenly we have all of these different dependencies that we can use. We can import any Unity catalog governed functions, or you could leave this blank if we wanted to. There are no rules. So this is like importing all of these UC functions. You can actually do that externally if you so choose through Unity Catalog AI. Um, where is it? Package. Yeah. Yeah. See, under Unity Catalog open source, you can import some of these Unity Catalog functions. So you could bundle a Genie Space and use it with Unity Catalog as a governance layer, even outside of Databricks, provided you actually authenticate to Databricks. You can see this Unity Catalog function client that just becomes a set of tools that we can attach to, or that is the object that we can attach to tools, and then ask queries about whatever functions we want to attach to, like the Genie API. So now we've got this bundle that we can use, right? And I'm just going to hop on some of this shared compute to get us started. Should be okay. We've always got, yeah, we've imported all these manually, so that should be good. Um, so I'm going to run this, and we're just going to get this environment up and running. I always ask for grace with these live demos. But you can see like this is the create tool calling agent. This is like the bundle that's all included. Again, not really important. You can dive into this more deeply yourself later. But what I do want to highlight is you see where it says like vector search tools. Again, we're not highlighting a vector search today. We can that easily extend a tool. And this is me, again, not trying to show you that you have to build all of these custom things. It's me showing the entire process of how easy it could be to layer in something like a Genie tool call. Okay, so we're just going to do that right now. We're going to go, and we've got this tool list, and we're going to say, actually, I want to add a custom Genie tool. So I'm going to say def Genie wrapper. I'm going to look up the syntax real quick of what's it called? Of a LangGraph tool call. So we're just going to look up LangGraph tool calls. LangGraph Python tool, right? Second, we're going to find yeah, this is like the tool abstraction that we're working with. It's the tool interface. See how we bundle this as a tool here, right? So we're just going to take LangChain core tools, right? You see these tools are then attached later to some dependencies. Um, we'll talk about this in one quick second. So you can see like all these tools, and then we want to actually like show how, and this is like a bundle of tools, like a toolkit, and we'll pass those tools as an additional tool that we extend into our list. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to this driver. I've got this Genie wrapper, and yep, I don't really want, you can clean this up to have better input and output. So, but we can start again, trying to show it really simply as we're getting started here. It's going to be add tool. We're going to say, this is from LangChain Core Tools. I want to make sure we actually import that. I think it's, yeah, there's the base tool. Yep. So that should be totally good. And we can say, I just want a Python tool. I'm pretty sure there's a way to like define a tool through a custom Python function. Give me one quick second. What we're going to do is, as we always see here, like this is that lane graph agent, just to pick up where we left off. We're going to define a tool where that tool is like the Genie wrapper, and we're going to import the Databricks AI bridge, right? So the Databricks AI bridge is that dependency here. So we just include there we go. That should be included. It often isn't. Give me one second. There we go. So we have to install the Databricks LangChain. Okay, it's already installed, so it should be good to go. I'm gonna kill this. Yeah, we've got this here. And now that Databricks LangChain Genie agent, great, is right there. And we've got the Genie agent, right, which is um see, we're just like wrapping this Genie agent call because we really don't care about making it super integrated. This is just me showing how can I make call out to Genie really simple, right? It's going to be something like this. So now we've got this Genie agent that we can invoke. So we say Genie agent dot, I think it's invoke. And then we just pass it the string that we're looking for, return. Yeah, uh, pass it the string, which is string Genie Space question, right? And then we pass it that Genie Space question, and that Genie Space question is what we actually return, right? So this is meant to show you that. Let's just see if I got this the syntax right. Yep, looks like I did. Awesome. So now we've got this additional tool. We haven't added it to this list yet. We want to extend that tool call. So what we want to do is we say tools.extend. We have to actually define the tool. So we say Genie tool equals, and we say square bracket, and we say base tool, and we say mhm, that's what I was looking for. Name is Genie. The function is the Genie wrapper, which is this function that just passes my question through. And the description is something you give to the model to like, hey, this is how you can best understand this. You can say this tool is used to, how do I best say, answer questions about SEC filings, sentiments, right? So you might attach a few different tools, right, that are used for different reasons that are all hitting the Genie tool functionality, but are instead calling, how do I best say, different data rooms, right? So we've got this tool.extend right here. As- Now that's added into our tool list, right? Great. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pass it through and I wanted to show you guys, where is it? We've got the tool and now I wanted to show, that's one example of building a tool that calls Genie. We just need to plug in the actual Genie space that I have. So I've got this Genie space. So if I go to Genie, I've got my Arthur Genie space. You can see how the room ID is this. This is the space ID. Sometimes it'll be called spaces, sometimes it'll be called rooms, depending on um your Genie configuration and where we exist in like the deployment a few months from now. So that's going to be the Genie space. And I believe this is, let me make sure the Genie agent I'm passing right. Peak definition. Let me just look at the dependencies. Um, this does not require private preview anymore. We can just look at the source real quick. So you can go to source, Databricks lang chain. You can go to Genie. There we go. And you see this is like the Genie agent itself. Yeah, so this is the Genie agent name that we want to give it. You can pass it a workspace client if you want to imply the authentication, but the authentication is implied if you're working in a Databricks notebook, so we don't have to do that here today. So I'm going to call this the SEC filing sentiments, right? And then now we've extended this tool, right? You can try to test it. Um, and it should be able to run. Oh, I don't know why it had me restart the Python runner in the middle of this. I think it's because it's trying to import agent. It's not really important. You get the core idea of what we're covering. And maybe before we go, I want to show you one more piece of this Genie capability. And this is that Genie query example. So give me one quick second. I'll hop over to that piece. So if we go to Genie, yeah, Genie as a tool. Um, Earlier, you remember that I had, you know, how these end up getting deployed with Unity Catalog is, you can see these different models and functions, right? We've got this Genie query, right? You can see this is just bundling all of the Genie object results. This is again without importing that custom LangChain package. It's using this custom, pure Python implementation that uses requests. So you can see like this is the initialization, the controls, the start, the ask. It's calling all those dependencies under the hood, those API calls. Again, this is not something I would say like if you're building it yourself, you would do. This is just trying to help you rationalize, well, I could bundle these things as tools. And I'm sure someday these dependencies will, we can do custom dependencies in Databricks soon enough. That's my own personal supposition on where all of this technology is going because this tool calling is so important. So you can do any custom pure Python or SQL stuff, but I could definitely see a world where this extends to more capabilities and more dependencies. So with that, I'm largely done with my presentation. I was just trying to convey how easy it is to hook up some of these Genie pieces.